Today is July 24th, and today's quote is entitled, Thoughts. You will never go higher than your highest thoughts, your highest ideals. Don't be afraid to think big, even if you don't feel qualified to reach your goals right now. So just as yesterday's thought was quite what I would think obvious or simple, but sometimes we find the simple and the obvious are really profound and not so obvious. And today's thought is also simple and obvious, but it's so interesting how things which are obvious can go unnoticed. They're like hidden from us. So it's been said, rightly so, profoundly so, and simply so, that thoughts are like seeds and the mind is like a garden. So you plant bad seeds or negative thought seeds, then obviously you get negative thoughts and negative actions. You plant the right thought, the right seed thought, and you get this beautiful garden. And sometimes, as we know, the wrong thoughts enter our mind. And what's so interesting is that a lot of us tend to be more in a negative frame of reference, like fighting off bad thoughts, where we say, control your mind, we should control our mind. But let's look at it from another point of view and just put in the right thought, and then your mind will be controlled. So I think a lot of us are more fighting the negative than putting in the positive, and this is also a simple thought. And I think we've discussed this before, that you can put thoughts in your mind, but because of our conditioning, thoughts just come to us, and so often we think our mind is a product of the thoughts that come based on, let's say, the condition of our devotional service, our sadhana, the influence of the modes of nature that particular time of the day or the week or the month. But the reality is we can alter our thoughts, and we can alter our state of consciousness, we can alter our emotional state more easily than we think we can. And I had this experience once. It was so strange, and I'm sure we've all had this experience. I was years ago on Sankirtan, and as we might say, in the modes. That would be a devotee expression for under the weather, but more specifically in Maya, more specifically in the modes, actually under the modes, controlled by the modes. And I didn't know what to do. So I went back in my car. I couldn't distribute books. I couldn't talk to anybody. I wasn't enthusiastic. I can't remember exactly what was going on, but I think nothing was going on, basically. And I didn't know what to do. So I was sitting in my car and I was thinking, I don't know what to do. And then this brilliant thought came out of nowhere: chant Hare Krishna. Oh, that's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that a half hour ago? I was sitting in the car for half an hour, bewildered, thinking what to do. And I think when we kind of fall into particular kind of consciousness, we don't know what to do, how to get out of it, it's a similar situation, because we could just think of something different. But that's so simple, and it seems sometimes impossible, because we're so used to either defending our thoughts, the ones we don't want, or not being able to control our mind. But the idea of this quote is, it's a lot easier to think of something positive, something Krishna conscious, than you think. And that is so obvious, and so often we don't do it. So the simple thought today is, your mind is like a garden, and your thoughts are like seeds, and some thoughts will turn into weeds, and some thoughts will turn into fragrant flowers and fruit trees. So you and I, all of us, we can plant good thoughts, and we can get good results. Now, one of the things I also realized, which is so obvious, and it only took me like 40 years to realize, was that we all have goals, and so many of us have thoughts which are totally undermining our goals. So I could never do that. That's not possible. And you want to achieve it. Why do you want to think you can't do it? Why do you want to think you're not qualified? Why do you want to think it's not possible? It doesn't make sense. What would be the right thought? Yes, we can figure out how to do it. It can happen. Give us time. I know I can do it. Those are the right thoughts. So isn't it strange sometimes how we allow the thoughts which undermine what we want to achieve to kind of dominate our thinking, where we could just have thoughts which would support what we want to achieve, and we can pick those thoughts. Just pick them and put them in. And you might say, but that's artificial. How was that going to work? The reason it works is because the mind doesn't analyze where the thought came. The mind just acts on the thought. So if you can figure out how to get a thought that I can do this, your mind will say, okay. And if you get a thought in your mind that says, I can't do it, your mind will say, okay. That's really important to understand. If you just get the right thought in your mind will respond to it and it'll act on it. Isn't that amazing? If you just get the right thought, your mind will respond to the right thought. Even if it's just like, it doesn't have to be right. I can't do this, is that right? Well, maybe subjectively you think it's right. But the mind doesn't know if that's true or not. And if it's not true and you tell the mind it's true, the mind will say, okay, you can't do it. And let's say, I can do it. And you say, but it's not true. And say, well, don't worry, your mind won't know the difference. So just tell your mind you can do it. Your mind will go figure out how to do it. So the mind is strange. It works that way. So think about these things and experiment by just doing what I've suggested here and see how it works for you.